T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Shout out to US ARC and all US ARC members. If you don't know what US ARC is, don't be ashamed. Just go ahead and click the third link in the description below. See what US ARC is all about, okay? You never know when legislations are going to hit your backyard, so that's why it's very important to consider becoming a US ARC member today. These numbers really do matter, and they look at it for consideration when it comes to battling legislation. So first and foremost, thank you, Phil Goss. Thank you to anybody out there who partners up and volunteers with US ARC organization. Thank you for anyone out there who's a US ARC member. And if you can't become a US ARC member today, please talk about it on your platforms. Let your neighbors know, let all your pet stores know what US ARC is here for, and it's here to fight for our animal rights. Thank you to every US ARC member and US ARC supporter out there. True.
All right, Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. This is Krista with the Girls Who Love Reptiles podcast, episode 60. We have Kara here from bloodpythons.com. Really excited. Some of my closest friends in the hobby have been recommending to have her on the show for a little bit now. And then once I started posting it on my Instagram stories this week, I had a lot of people message me saying they're really excited to either watch live or hear it after. So I'm really excited for the show. We've been talking a little bit backstage, and I can just tell the conversation is going to go great. So really excited to hear from her and all of her experiences in the hobby. So I'm going to continue on and do the sponsors here, and then we'll bring Kara on right after that. So we have ReptiCo, the official sponsor of the Girls Who Love Reptiles podcast. Channing is the daughter of Billy and Dawn Rice from Rice Reptiles. She started her own reptile business doing hognose snakes as well as crested geckos, really high-end quality animals. So if you're not following them already, believe they're official ReptiCo on Instagram. Of course, follow them on MORPH Market so you get notifications when they're posting animals. And of course, the Rice Reptile family have great YouTube videos that they're pushing out every single week. So make sure to follow them. Subscribe to their YouTube channel as well. And then we have Brian from SUNDOWN Reptiles producing really nice, high-end, high-quality kahua geckos, as well as tree monitors. I have quite a bit of his kahua production here behind me in the room, so really excited to just meet with him, talk to him at shows and all of that. And I really look up to him as a breeder. And then we have Blake from Blake's Exotic Feeders producing high quality quail. So of course, we're all wanting to feed a variety of meals to our animals. So if you're looking for quail, reach out to Blake and he will get you set up. And then we'll finish it off with Clutch. So if you're looking for a system in order to keep things organized with your ball python collection, definitely look into Clutch. They have just a breeding scheme that you can set up pairings with. Of course, the incubator countdown, and a very nice way to print off labels for shows or for just keeping your collection organized and all of that. So if you're looking for a software in order to do that, reach out to Justin at Canova, of course, Sebastian, who helps run the Clutch, and he'll get you set up with that. And then I'll bring on Carrie here and we will get started. All right. How's it going?
It's going really good for a Sunday. How about you?
It's going fantastic. I had an awesome weekend. I had talking backstage, I had a pool day yesterday with some friends from work, and just I needed that to be out in the sun, and just had an amazing time. So just kind of taking it slow today, doing some things around the house, prepping for the work week. So
absolutely. That's way more fun. I spent yesterday cleaning rats and mice and soft furs and all of our feeder colonies. So I think you definitely win with the pool day.
Yeah. You know, can't beat it in November. It's in the 80s. So yeah. So you do all three. You do mice, rats, and ASFs?
I do mice, rats, and ASFs. And then I have a fellow keeper locally who does quail if I ever need to source quail. And then I also raise chickens and geese and ducks. And I now have a pair of emus. Not that those are feeders; those are just for fun.
Yeah.
But so we have a variety of options for
Awesome.
feeders.
That's
Yeah.
very cool. Very cool. Kind of probably get into that too. I'd be interested to hear more on the variety of diet
Yeah.
and all of that. But again, really excited for this episode. I can already tell the chat's already popping. A lot of people coming in to hear. So yeah, really excited to have you on. Kind of give us sort of like a background. Like what kind of got you into reptiles in general, and what kind
Oh,
of led you into
sure.
the bloods and the short tails. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've always, I was like the kid that was obsessed with animals. From just a very, very, very young age. And like my grandfather, I just remember, I have all these really fond memories of just walking around their farm and finding animals. And he just really kind of instilled that love of all things, whether it was a toad or if it was a box turtle or a garter snake or anything. Like it was important and it had a place. And he really helped instill that. And then I caught my first snake on my parents' porch, growing up in Texas, and was not allowed to keep it in the house because no snakes in the house. So I had to take it to the biology lab at school. And when I did that, there were like boas and, all kinds of other stuff in the bio lab. And so that really kind of sparked that interest. And then, once I moved out and started kind of doing my own thing, I was able to really get into boas were kind of the start, and then kept different Australian pythons, king snakes, all kinds of different stuff. And then had the opportunity to visit VPI, Vita Preciosa International, so Dave and Tracy Barker's facility. And that's where Tracy introduced me to blood pythons. And that was just an instant obsession. And that was back in October 2000. And
Wow.
I've been obsessed with blood pythons ever since. So yeah,
Wow.
that's in a very small nutshell.
Wow, that's what kind of tell us about that first like interaction you had with them, and then tell us a little bit more about that first blood that you actually acquired and about that.
Sure. So it's funny because I have this vivid memory. I'm standing there in Tracy's snake building, their main building. They have like the big building and then the small building. We're in the big building, and she knew that I was into locality boas at the time, and had some really pretty red tail boas like Surinames from Tim Belknap and Lloyd Lemke, just some old school stock. And I just very distinctly remember, Tracy brought out this T positive albino blood python, and she said to me, I know you think your boas are really colorful, but look at this. And it literally brought me to tears. It was just the prettiest snake I'd ever seen. I love red snakes, and just boom, game, set, match. Like I was into blood pythons. And then got some Sumatran short-taileds from Tracy, which are, back at the time, they were called black bloods. They're a different species altogether, but they're, really dark, glossy black animals. And so I went on kingsnake.com, as we all did back in the early 2000s, and found a blood python listed for sale, and was just like, wow, this is really red. I want to buy this snake. And I did, and it showed up, and it was nowhere near as red as it was in the picture. And I just remembered being so crushed because, all this anticipation, and you know how it is, like you're getting a new animal and you're all geeked out and you're excited, and then it shows up and it looks nothing like what you thought it was going to. And just that just left such a lasting impression. And I was like, man, I never want to be the reason another keeper has this kind of experience. And so it taught me to get really, really selective with the animals I wanted to keep, but then also like, this is why we have to be transparent. This is why we have to take really good pictures. And just to really think about how I wanted to communicate my animals and present them to prospective customers. And then in 2002, I had the opportunity to move to New Hampshire and worked for NERD for nearly 10 years.
Wow.
And this was like right at the height of crazy ball python happenings and all of that, but got to work with a whole bunch of different species while focusing on bloods and short tails. And that really just, I think, shaped my experience as a keeper. And then also just the access to breeding the type of blood python that I wanted to breed. And so that, again, in a very small nutshell, really shaped and impacted that whole experience, and kind of took me to where I am today. In 2011, I moved to Iowa, and basically my then fiance, now husband, Ryan, at the time, also bred blood pythons. It's actually how we met.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, right. Like blood pythons literally changed the entire trajectory of my
That's
life.
amazing.
It is. And so we combined our collections, and we'll be celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary in April. And we still have a lot of blood pythons.
How many do you
So
guys
here
have?
we are. We have a lot of blood pythons. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I like to keep the core, like right now we're in the low 200s,
Okay.
which is really, I don't like to be up that high. That's with this year's babies, that kind of thing. I like to keep our core group of adults around 60 to 70, just to keep it super manageable and in the manner of keeping that we want to do. So that's, yeah, it's a lot of snakes.
A lot of snakes, but that's awesome that
Mhm.
you're able to kind of just, even me with getting this new job, like it's all about the people you
Yeah.
meet in life, where it's like almost like if something didn't happen, then you wouldn't have ever either met that person or had that experience. Like it's just, we were talking about this with my friends yesterday, how,
Mhm.
if this didn't happen, then, we wouldn't be here, just, this is like a very small thing.
Totally.
Taking a boat ride on an island and meeting somebody there. Like it's just some of the small things that kind of bring you to who you meet and shift your life. And it can just,
Yeah.
change your whole perspective on things. Kind of with that, who are some of your like mentors or influences like early on?
So early on, Tracy Barker, of course. I mean, just looking at this woman who has accomplished so much, as a breeder, as a author, as a parent. She
Yep.
was just a huge influence. Kevin McCurley, obviously at Nerd, just taught me so much. I would say a big influence, and this is tough. He passed away earlier
Mm,
this year, but that was Nick
mm,
Bottini of Cold Blooded Earth.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yep.
Nick and I have been friends for a lot of years,
Mhm.
and just, yeah, big influence. Like every single snake in my collection has been influenced by him in some way,
Wow.
just through years of friendship. And but then getting to interact with so many, like being in the industry for so many years and getting to interact with so many different great breeders at shows. Like I think of Don Hamper and Al Zulich and Eugene Bissett and
Mhm.
Dan and Colette Sutherland, and just like some of these folks that have been doing this for so long and have made such an impact on the hobby, and just sitting and listening to them and soaking up knowledge, and thinking, how do you apply this? How do you pay this forward? How do you put this into practice? And those were just some really amazing opportunities, because it was all during this time that access to information was becoming more and more readily available, because the internet was now a thing.
Mm.
And so it was kind of that golden age, I guess, of herpetoculture.
Mm.
And so just that, through that exposure, got to learn from a lot of different people, and
Mm.
it was really, really cool.
Yeah. What are some things from Nerd that kind of, from spending the time there, that you've kind of, that has helped shape keeping, or on the breeding side? Just I'd just be curious. There's probably a lot, but if you could think of, I don't know, two or three or something, I'd be curious. Yeah.
I mean, just I think getting to experience such a wide variety of animals and seeing things that are consistent regardless of species, like change triggers behavior, environmental change, feeding changes, that kind of stuff. Like that's just a pretty consistent thing with reptiles across the board.
Mhm. Mhm.
You then have to fine tune that via species. But that's just kind of one of those fundamental things. Also, making sure that your basics are just so dialed in, regardless of what species, like they know what their needs are, know what needs have to be met on a consistent basis, and how you're going to do that. And that's like a baseline fundamental of keeping. Quarantine, what are your quarantine procedures? How are you deciding when to introduce an animal into an established collection? What are best practices for maintaining separation and just not cross contaminating things? I mean, just so many things. I don't know if I could even pick 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
and then how to cultivate relationships with customers so that not only does that customer have a great experience, but I think even more so, how does the animal you send them have a great experience with that customer? Because that's my end goal, is that I want that animal to go somewhere that it's going to just have the best possible life that it could.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gets overlooked maybe, or we don't always think of what does that look like in the long run. And it's something we have to consider.
Right. Yeah. So
So,
many different things, not only from the animal side, but yeah, I think sometimes we forget about the customer care
mhm.
skills that you maybe can only kind of learn by being at an institution like Nerd or
Yeah.
something else. So yeah, I have to take those into account too as well. So yeah, it's quite a bit of. Let me see. I think we have a question here. I can put it up. I can answer this one.
Yeah, is it uncommon to ultrasound blood pythons for follicles? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. So,
I'll leave it up there.
yes, because blood pythons can be kind of difficult to ultrasound. They're really heavy bodied. Those follicles can be tough to see, but blood pythons can also retain sperm for like 18 months.
Hmm.
And so, if a female is not moving towards a reproductive event, like she'll just stall out and she'll just be hanging out there. And so you might be looking at, smaller follicles for months and months and months and months and months. It's not quite like clockwork, like you would see with ball pythons. And that's not to say that ball pythons don't resorb their follicles and can go backwards, but it's just more hit or miss with bloods, and they'll make you second guess a lot of things. And so I just don't think it's as effective
Hmm.
or as necessary. So, and I love geeky gadgets like that. Like, I'm a data nerd.
Yeah.
And so I love, like, that was one of my favorite things at Nerd, is being able to ultrasound and doing all that kind of cool stuff. But with bloods, it's not as effective.
So in
So,
order for like timing wise, you think it's more, I guess, with your experience on food cycling and time of year, or how does like the pairing process work for you, or how have you learned?
food, lighting, and the presence of males. And the females will tell you what they're doing. Like, I like to feed my girls cyclically. And so there are, certain times a year where I'll dial them back on food. And then certain times a year where I will feed them up and just kind of get them, prepped and going into the season. They really key into light cycle a lot. Like, our primary room, the lights in the room trigger off of our natural light cycles here. And so being able to just kind of expose them to those shortening days, that really makes a huge difference. Light cycle is huge. And then starting to introduce males, early in the season, letting that female get exposed to a male, even if you're not seeing copulation, even if you're just not even seeing early courtship, that presence of a male will very frequently just kind of get that vitellogenesis kicked off. And then those follicles will start developing. And then you see courtship, you see copulation, and you'll see females starting to sit in these kind of stacked coils. And when you see that, you're like, all right, you're moving in the right direction. And then it's just a matter of, making sure that that they've had sufficient weight going into the breeding season. And then, I like to see like 6 copulations, and that's way overshooting it, but that's how I do things. I will do things way more than necessary sometimes just to seal the deal. I've had some snakes that I've paired up all season and never actually saw them lock up, but then she produced like a perfect clutch of eggs, which is nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But you see that you're moving in the right direction, and then you warm them up in the spring, and they're usually good to go.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Super interesting. Hopefully that helped out some. I know there's quite a few blood python people in the chat, so
Ooh,
hopefully that
awesome.
helps. With the species, as you've kind of learned their behaviors and all of that, what other sort of any early like misconceptions about them that have turned out to be wrong? Like what are like some of those that you've kind of learned along the way?
I think the two biggest misconceptions about blood pythons is that you have to keep them hot, you have to keep them wet. That's not true. They like to be cool. My ambient temperatures are usually 78 to 82 degrees. Like, that's the sweet spot. And then I do offer hotspots, but I also offer enough room for my snakes to get well away from them. I like an 86-degree basking spot, and that just really works. And that's from like babies on up to adults. And then 50 to 60% humidity is where I like to keep them dialed in. And then if I have a snake going into shed, I will adjust accordingly from there. Or if I'm pairing adults up, I'll spray them down, that kind of thing. But you don't need sopping pans of moss. You don't need 80% humidity. Blood pythons have a very big primary lung. And so when you've got dripping wet cages, you're a vet, you have stale air, you have dripping wet cages, that is prime bacterial and fungal petri dish. And so you've got a snake with this huge lung. That's why blood pythons were thought to be really, susceptible to respiratory infections. It's like, no, we're not keeping them correctly. And then they have this huge lung. So it's very difficult for them to kick that infection once they have it.
That's very interesting to know. I think it's like I've heard about other species too. Yeah. Keeping them, it really, I think kind of goes back to some green tree python talks I've kind of listened to, where it's almost better to like keep the room at like a certain temperature versus just spraying them all the time, like constantly, and keeping in that little micro, whatever enclosure you have. That's their kind of environment is, and it's not interchanging as much as it, out in the wild or something like that. So I think more room, humidity for those species that need more is better. So I find it pretty interesting too. So and with the blood pythons too, I've heard a little bit about kind of being defensive. Like, what are your thoughts on that too? Is that kind of also a misconception?
It's not a misconception, but I think if what's our baseline? Are we comparing them to ball pythons? Sure, absolutely. But put a baby retic next to a baby blood, next to a baby berm, next to a baby ball python, and 3 out of the 4 are going to bite you because they're at the bottom of the food chain and they think you're going to try to eat them.
Yeah.
And that's baby pythons in general. They're defensive. They're going to bite. I think the thing with bloods is if you don't put the time into them from the time they're young, you're going to be dealing with this squirrely spring-loaded snake as they get bigger. And wild caught bloods, absolutely a menace. They could be really difficult. But temperament can largely be impacted by selective breeding. And that's a wonderful thing about these snakes, is that it's really easy to select for placid temperaments. And then the rest is just up to you as a keeper. What do you want that mirror of a snake to look like?
Interesting. So you've been able to see just through selective breeding on the temper. Is that something you
100%.
select for, and then otherwise genes and expression? Like, what kind of morphs do you work with, or is it mainly temperament, combination of both?
The 2 big things that I select for are color and temperament. Those are equal priority for me, and I will deprioritize one or the other based on what I need to happen in that particular group. Morphs have not been my big focus. I am into line breeding the reddest snakes that I can, the absolute reddest snakes that I can. I have expanded into several different mutations. T positive albino, I have pro exotic stripes, sunder, batik, flower, things like that. But give me a good line bred red any day, and just make it the reddest snake you can, and that's going to really sprinkle my donuts.
Yeah, sprinkle my donuts. Yes. I've never heard that expression before. I love that's. I mean, that's the kind of what piqued my interest in them, was the T positive albino. We kind of talked backstage. My friend Brandon Nixon breeds them, and he's one of my best friends in the industry. And so I've seen some like
they have some really pretty bloods. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see a lot of reptiles with that red kind of that screaming red color. I think. Oh, we got another question too. Pop that in here.
Let's see. Yeah, what weight can a male breed? Boy, that's a great question. Males can breed pretty small. I think age is more important than necessarily weight. The big thing with bloods is they are marathon breeders. Like some males will breed a garden hose, I swear, if you let them. And they will, like, you'll put these snakes together and you'll see them locked up for like 72 hours at a time. And that's not uncommon. And so I think the big thing you have to keep in mind is that if you have a male, I mean, 800 grams, that's a pretty small snake. I think 5 pounds is a good baseline, just because that's going to give a male stamina and kind of staying power while he was going through this long breeding season with very little food and spending a lot of time with females. And some males will breed themselves to death, and that's not specific to bloods. Like, I think in many species, some males will just, like, they're so locked in that if you are breeding a male that's too small, you run that risk of detriment to the snake. So that's where kind of that 5 pound baseline is. Can you squeak by with less? You can, but what are you really seeking to gain out of it? What is so essential that it's going to move things forward for you this year, that waiting an extra year isn't going to hurt? Like, I always wait an extra year on my females. It is unheard of that I breed a female before she's 4 years old. And I will very typically do that for males too, just to give them that extra size, that extra weight. I think you get better quality clutches in the long run from waiting until your snakes are more mature.
Okay. That's a pretty good tip too. Yeah, something I've kind of just learned. It's so hard when you're starting out. You want to just get them and just breed them. And I had that too. I was like, oh, I'm behind, and like, you can't have that sort of mentality, or it'll just kind of go in circles. So, this is what I'm only my second or third year in, I guess, but I have a different philosophy now than that first year. I'm just a lot more chill and just ready to just wait and not rush things. And it's just I think a better mentality to have just for the animals. Easier said than done, but
oh, totally. And we've all been there, but here's the thing. And I challenge anyone listening to this is, set your intention for your breeding program, for any pairing that you do. Like, too many people just pair snakes up because they have two snakes that are sexually mature and can breed because they want to hatch something. To that, I say, go on Morph Market and look. There are a lot of average blood pythons out there and a lot of below average blood pythons out there. And it's like, why are we putting snakes together just to produce, exciting snakes? Like, go into the purpose of breeding animals to make something better than, whether it's health, whether it's longevity, whether it's temperament, whether it's color, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. Know what that intention is. Be able to articulate it. Don't just say, oh, I want to make something better. What does better mean to you and your group? And then know which snakes you have in your collection that are going to make that happen. And if you don't have them, get rid of those and get better.
Yep. Like, that's totally agree. I mean, we're seeing it now, just a lot of people getting in, just breeding to breed. I had another guest on that kind of referred to her program almost to like horse breeding, or more like that, where you're really selecting only the best of the best to then
that is my philosophy, 100%. And that's based off horses, based off dogs. Like, yes, 100%.
Yes, I think it's something we should talk about more, in that kind of approach. Like, yes, it's fun, it's easy, and people can get it kind of away with it because there's not as much like regulation on breeding like there is, with the dogs, with the USDA that have to come in and inspect and all of that. You still get your backyard stuff, of course, but I think talking about it more will kind of help shift the thought to that. We should only be really breeding the best of the best. Otherwise, you just get these animals live for a long time. People are just dropping them off at PetSmart or Vet Shop or vet clinics and all of that, because they don't want them anymore. I mean, I went in Missouri in my apartment. I found like a leopard gecko in one of those critter keepers next to like the dumpster, and this is like February. This is February in Missouri. Yeah, so I of course took it in and everything like that. But it just we just can't continue to do that on a sustainability, I guess, scale, if you would, and making sure these animals have good homes. So,
to that point, that's why, like, I'm not on Morph Market. I haven't ever been on, and no shade to anyone who is, like, that's fine. But if you want a snake from me, I have an application process. You have to fill out a prospective owner application. I will screen that. I will go back and forth and ask you questions. There's a critical thinking question. And that's, I showed Great Danes for 12 years. And so this is kind of a practice that I took from that. And it was, I have better customers. Like I have the best customers. My snakes go to the best homes. And does it mean that I'm sending snakes out to every single person who inquires about one? No. But I get such thoughtful, conscientious, caring keepers that these snakes just go and thrive. It's like they are so set up for success when they leave here because of that, taking the extra time and going through that process and really kind of weeding out people that
Mhm.
aren't aligned with my values for these animals and vice versa. It has been a game changer. It has been an absolute game changer. And that means that some years, I don't breed every single year. And that
Yeah.
means sometimes people are sitting on a waiting list for a specific clutch or a specific bloodline. But man, I have the best customers, and I will say that. And that is something where if you want someone who is educated and knows what they're getting into and reaches out with questions or just reaches out with pictures and updates, take more time, spend more time screening customers rather than just turning around and selling snakes. And it changes the enjoyment, it changes the situation for the animal.
Yeah.
And I think it really helps build that kind of engagement and community that we need to see in the reptile hobby.
100%. It's like it's hard. It's kind of why it's hard for me to do a lot of shows because I
Mhm.
can't vet them
Yeah,
as
I don't do
well.
shows.
Yeah, I've slowed down quite a bit. I mean, I'm just busy with work and moving, but I've slowed down quite a bit. I'll still
Mhm.
go and see friends, but I'm not as I don't know, just not as
Yeah.
interested as I kind of was doing them. I like the
Sure.
education. I guess I would do them to like educate people and, based on their knowledge, I guess, depending,
Mhm.
sell them something. But yeah, it's kind of has changed the philosophy with that too. But the application, I think I had another, they did reticks, but they did a similar
Mhm.
application kind of process that, yeah, it gives you a lot more ability to vet and
Yep.
screen people. So I think that's pretty, what the direction I think we should be going in
Yeah.
as well. So yeah, it's very interesting too. You probably took that from the dog breeding, of course, as
Totally.
well, and all of
Totally.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's yeah, and I mean it's some people are like, "Oh, why are you being so gatekeepy?" And it's like this isn't about gatekeeping. These animals I've put a lot of time into. I've put a lot of effort into. A lot of just blood, sweat and tears, quite literally. And I don't want them to just go anywhere. And again, if we want things to be better, we have to lead by example, and we have to not just say, "Hey, I want things to be better." We have to demonstrate this is what I'm doing to at least make it better for my little slice of the world, and here's
Right.
the outcome. So
Right. And I think
yeah.
with the application, I guess, how did you build your customer base over the years? Like, was there certain things you did in the beginning, or did you always kind of have that application process, or did you do shows in the beginning? Like, how did you
Oh yeah,
build
no,
the name and the
absolutely
customer
have done
base and
shows.
all that? Yeah.
Yeah. Did shows way early, but I mean, I haven't done a show since 2009, so it's really create quality, be consistent, um, know what you're producing, know what you can, like, get to know each snake individually, be able to match keepers up with what they're looking for with the snakes. And that means that you have to spend a lot of time with your snakes. You have to know what's in your collection. It's not just going and plucking this snake out of this bin and going, good luck, here you go. It's
Mhm.
here, I think you two are going to match up really well. And just, I think being able to do that, and then word of mouth, but then also being willing to help people. I do admin a blood python group on Facebook. My website has a ton of husbandry information on it. We used to have forums on the website, years and years and years ago. But I think just being willing to give back, being willing to help people who need help, and establish that sense of community, that goes a long way. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think the big part there too is just takes time.
it
It's not
does.
like an overnight. Even the whole thing of getting into this should just not be rushed and but takes time.
Yeah.
I think social media kind of explodes that a little bit, but also
Mhm.
makes it kind of difficult for somebody new coming in, kind of vetting people to buy from because of social media. Because you can do such a good job of putting yourself out there, but really not, I would say fake per se, but like kind of like a facade. Like it's kind of hard, you can put yourself out there, but not have the maybe experience or something like that. I've just seen kind of a lot of that where it's more about the person than like the animals. So for new people, that makes it hard to kind of get swung into that. I don't know what your thoughts are on that
Oh, I
in
mean,
general, but yeah.
I've watched the arc of this kind of happen since 2002 and
Yeah.
even, before. And it's like, how many people have a Facebook page, a YouTube channel, stickers, and t-shirts, and have only ever bred 2 clutches of snakes, and the babies that they've sold, if somebody comes back and has a question, a husbandry question, they literally do not have the experience to help troubleshoot that issue.
Wow.
Yeah. But they have stickers.
But they have stickers.
But they have stickers. So, I mean, I think we have to be, and here's where it can be tough, right, with reptiles, because unfortunately there is kind of that disposable pet mentality. And that sucks, because you can get a ball python for $15 at an expo, get a normal male super cheap. And people very frequently impulse buy and all right, cool, I have this thing, and now it's this thing, and it's really cool, and I don't know anything about it. Help. And then they go to a group and they get ridiculed, and it turns into this kind of downward spiral for them because they didn't do their homework. Because we live in this Amazon Prime generation of, click and it's there the next day, or the same day, and it's cheap and you want it now. These are living creatures. These are living creatures with long lifespans. These are living creatures with specific needs. We have to do better. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard, and not just, impulse buy everything that comes along, because there's always going to be someone that will fill that need for someone who wants it now. And I think too, as keepers, like if you want that really awesome trophy animal that you just walk in and it gives you goosebumps every time you see it, you can't settle. You have to be intentional. It's like with anything else in life, you have to be intentional, and you cannot settle for the first thing that comes along. And don't be afraid to wait for something better. I think a lot of things in life are that way. And yeah, sorry, that was probably way more than I could have answered that a lot more concisely, but I feel really strongly about it.
No, these are the beauties of these shows, and just kind of
Cool.
seeing where stuff. So no, by all means, I prefer the guests to talk as much as they
right.
want. They want. I kind of step in here and there, but yeah, it kind of goes back to the whole patience. Patience is a virtue. It's so much. It's so hard when you know, young and not as much experience maybe to have it, but it will pay off in the long run with anything from selecting to just breeding to selling the animal. It's all just it's hard. And of course you get a dopamine rush every time you buy an animal, go pick it up. There's a little kind of hitch you get along the way, but if you can get patience and sort of discipline, which, as a keeper, I think is a really important trait to have just overall.
Absolutely. You will not always be motivated, so you must be disciplined.
Yep. And I've learned these are all like, it's cool, but life skills too in general that I can apply to my job, or like this, I've gained so much public speaking skills just from this, and I can become a better person. It's just kind of mind blowing that how, as we talked about, this can change our literal lives and become better people. But I'm starting to go off a little.
No, but I totally agree. It's funny because like getting to meet so many different people and understand their experiences. Like one, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about, someone who goes online and they get bad information or they get ridiculed in a social media group. If you really care about the end game for that animal, the last thing we need to do is ridicule keepers that are coming in with general questions. Yes, it is frustrating as hell to see somebody who does not do their homework before getting a snake or getting whatever species, insert animal here. But nobody ever learned from being ridiculed and told they suck. And if we want to create connection, if we want to create a desire to learn and a desire to do better and an understanding of why they should, we have to make it more accessible for people to learn. And they have to learn what better looks like before they can realize why what they're doing wasn't working to begin with.
Yeah.
And that can't happen unless we're willing to communicate, unless we're willing to set ego aside and, not worry about one-upping somebody else for validation, but saying, all right, how can I help somebody grow so this animal has a better experience? And that's not what you see online a lot of the time these days.
No, and it's hard to kind of wrap my mind around, how I guess it's easy. People are behind keyboard. You can't see them. people are totally, I've seen it where they act a certain way online. Then I see that person in person at like a show and it's like totally different. Like nothing ever
Right.
happened. So it's a quick kind of, and it's out there and people don't think before they speak, and it's easy on social media and you can create all these anonymous things. People don't really know it's you and a whole bunch of other thing. But yeah, people get, I guess, kind of a ego boost from putting someone else down. So I think it's like a kind of a societal thing, not just in the snake.
100%. No, it's not. No, it's the root of social media. And I won't even get on my soapbox with like these predatory algorithms that keep us hooked in and pissed off. But basically it's this comparative nature of social media. I've got to one up, or I'm not as good as this person, or I'm not as good. And it's like, oh my gosh, just unplug and step away from that. And, kind of go back to who you are as like, what do you want your values to look like? Do you want to build up, or do you want to tear down? Because that's ultimately what this comes down to. Are you giving back? Are you giving more than you take? And if you can't answer that in a method that helps you sleep at night, then maybe it's time to reassess and log off for a little bit.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I really like that way of thinking, and hopefully doing things like this can kind of help. Just take time. I don't know if we can change one person. That's better than nothing. So
exactly.
I think Christina. Yep, we have another question here. Here we go.
Yeah. Do you drop temps at night or keep the same ambient temp day and night? So I have a little bit of a drop, just because our climate here is it tends to drop anyway. And so 82 to even sometimes up to 84 will be my ambient during the day. And then 77 is usually about as low as I let it get at night. So you get too much lower than that with bloods and short tails. You can start running into respiratory if they don't have access to heat, but they do like to have that little bit of temperature change as well. So yeah.
Okay. Pretty good question with that. Can kind of also go into like with the incubation. What have you done early on? Has it changed at all? What kind of things have you learned on the incubation side of things?
I've done maternal incubation in the past. That was fun. It was just neat to experience and to see. I typically artificially incubate everything. I am really old school when it comes to incubation. I use coarse grade vermiculite. I weigh my vermiculite, I weigh my water, and I do a 1-to-1 ratio. And they go into gasketed tubs that do have air holes drilled in, but then I tape over the air holes, and that way I can just, adjust as needed. And I incubate at 87.5 degrees, and they are done in about 65 days. And I get big, fat, robust babies that don't have yolk bellies, and they don't come out little and scrawny. So yeah, that's my approach. It's really simple, really straightforward, really low tech.
Yeah. Is there a certain type of incubator you use, or?
Yep, I have a big merchandising fridge. So like a drink cooler. Ryan, my husband, who again, blood python keeper, also a master electrician.
Oh,
so yeah, so that's
very nice.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing. Like in our main room, all of our plugins are at shoulder height or on the ceiling. And he wired up our incubator. He's got like all these elaborate fans and cool lighting and all that kind of stuff. But it's all retrofitted, all homemade. Yeah, works really well.
Very nice. Very nice. That makes it. I wish I was more handy. That's
right. Me too. Yeah. No, don't give me power tools. Someone will end up going to the ER. No. So yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. That's actually the first kind of interaction with my boyfriend that I actually had now. We were at like work and he was struggling with power tools and stuff like that, and just continuous jokes. So now it's like, the arrow like means that it's reverse or not.
Okay, so that's not just me. All right. Because you're a really smart lady, and so now I just feel so much better about myself.
It's just that was the first interaction we had when we were like working together, and I was struggling using power tools. So now it's like a joke. It's a joke
that you'll never hear the end of. Like
no, but then I'm like, okay, you can help me put up some pictures, and like he'll help me even just like so weird, like even like a can of like sauce or something like
right, open the jar of pickles for me. I'll go to my husband. I need your strongs. you know.
I
Yes,
sit there and I'm like tapping in. I'm like, I give up, and I'm like,
just
okay,
yeah,
just open it. But anyway, so
absolutely.
it's
That's so
nice to
funny.
have that help. Um, just gonna ask with so incubation with the fat and robust babies. You ever have issues establishing them, or like what's your kind of establish um
Not
feed wise, or do anything special?
not I mean, there are always some every season that tend to maybe be a little bit squirrely, and it's onesie twosie. It's not, like tons and tons of babies that don't eat. So they hatch, one of the big things with short-tail pythons, blood pythons and short-tail pythons. And I just want to interject, like when I say short-tail pythons, I mean Python brongersmi, which is the blood python, Sumatran short-tailed pythons, which are
Okay.
Python curtis, Borneo short-tailed pythons, which are Python breitensteni. All three were subspecies of Python curtis up until about 2000, I want to say. But what applies to one applies to all three.
Okay.
Their care is the same, the incubation is the same, like
Mm.
everything is the same pretty much, aside from like morphology and where they come from. So
Okay.
what goes for one goes for all three. With that in mind, so short-tailed pythons don't shed until they're like 90 to 120 days old at least. Some of them might not go through that first shed for 6 months, depending on how they eat. So unlike other species, you are not waiting for that first shed to offer food. So what I do is, once they hatch, I set them up individually on wet paper towels, because babies can be really derpy about water, and they'll dry out easily. And so within that first couple of weeks, they will pass. It looks like a urate, but it's really like this little like yolk poop, and it's yellow and crumbly, and so it's really easy to mistake for a urate. When I see that, I'm like, okay, time to probably start offering food. I don't stress about them eating if they haven't taken food within like the first month or two. When they start like 6 to 8 weeks, I'm like, okay, all right, I'm watching who's doing what, and I might change things up. Then I might give them moss as bedding instead, or I might try scenting with quail, or I might try a soft fur instead of a mouse, things like that. But it's not super often that I have babies that don't hit the ground running. I've also made it a point to really select for robust, strong feeders too, because I don't like dealing with fussy snakes.
Yeah.
And so that plays a part too,
Yeah.
And
That's probably part of why you have a variety, but do you just also feed like a variety? Like, do you have a routine where you feed this feeder for like a month and switch a month, or is it just, grab
it's
whatever?
what I have available and what did this snake eat last time.
Okay.
So, yep. Mix it up. Feed, one of the things I like to say is feed the snake in front of you. So many people want this formula for like what should they be eating and how big should they be. I'm like, you know what? Look at that snake, know how to judge body condition and adjust, because that snake's going to change in 2 weeks. That snake's going to change in a month. And you just need to grow your skills as a keeper so that you can adjust accordingly and not just go by this rigid formula to produce said size or weight by a certain time. Like, that's not how real life works.
Yeah. I mean, it's all genetics, individuality plays a big role into it
Yep.
too. Yeah. I've seen that too with a lot of new customers. They want like a cookie cutter pace, and it just ends up just
But
being more
no.
difficult than it needs to
Yeah.
be. So yeah.
And I get it, right? Like, people, they love these animals. They want things to go really smoothly.
Yep.
But if you're never challenged, how on earth are you going to grow? We don't grow from places of comfort.
That's very true. That's a very good way to, the challenges in pretty much anything in life too, with this or work. With me and the new job has been challenges every
I bet.
day with that. But
Yeah.
I only look at it as like to get better, become a better person, better worker, whatever it is. So yeah, it's good. I like hearing you say that.
Growth mindset is vital. If you have this fixed mindset,
Yeah.
that'll lock you into this idea that perfectionism is the only way, and perfectionism is fatal. Like, that can just be so squelching to growth. Growth mindset, mistakes are opportunities to learn. Be intentional, journal, keep notes on what works and what doesn't. Reflect on those, have time for reflection, especially as a keeper. Like, evaluate your collection, audit your collection, what's going on, look at data, look at trends, and you'll learn a lot about yourself as a keeper. So, but you can't do that if you don't keep notes.
No. Are you you write everything down, or do you have like a system that you keep things in? electronically?
I use Husbandry Pro.
Okay.
It's been great, but I write a lot of stuff down. I have like stickies on cages, and sometimes I'll just be out there with the dry erase marker and like write directly on enclosures, and then I'll go through and kind of collect all that. I call them
Yeah.
open loops, and all my open loops will go into a notebook, and I just gotta write that down and keep going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of also, yeah, with the green tree guys, some of them do really detailed
Yes.
notes. So in some of these species where there's not a lot of, we're still learning about
Hmm.
them, it becomes like super imperative. And then sharing, I think, which you have learned
Yeah.
too, because it's not all accessible on the internet, which surprises a lot of people, right? Because you can find
I know,
everything on
right?
the internet.
Right.
When you're doing things like this, where it's, not a lot of research back behind it, it's kind of like the, I guess, Wild West of figuring out and what works and what doesn't
Yes.
work, and also area of the country you live in. Like, just because it works for
Hmm.
one person, it's not set in stone. So I don't know. There's a lot that can be learned. So
Totally. But if we're not willing to share that information, if we're not willing to stick our necks out and say, I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to put this out there,
yeah,
then what are we doing? You
yeah,
know?
that's true too. Yeah, it goes back to not forgetting or not being worried about the backlash that
Yes.
we talked about.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to have difficult conversations.
Correct. Yep. 100%. That's the only way to really grow. And we have another good question from
Yeah.
HH. Yeah, biosecurity. Yeah, that's a good
Biosecurity.
one.
Yeah, that's a great question. So biosecurity, I quarantine. First of all, this is the first year I've brought new animals in quite some time. I just don't like, my greatest biosecurity is that I'm my own biggest customer. I don't need to bring in outside snakes. When I do, I quarantine them in a separate building.
Hmm.
I, will not do any kind of cross contamination. There's no overlap, no anything between the two until we've done a full panel, and like nidovirus is the big one, of course, that I know
Yep.
everyone is, and rightfully so. But until those snakes have come back clean, like minimum 90 days of quarantine, preferably 6 months, and sometimes if my spidey senses are tingling, I'll go a year.
Hmm.
So it's yeah, just be smart, like one of the big things that I see keepers doing, and it gives me the kind of heebie jeebies, is people who think you can use a disinfectant as a detergent. And it's like, no,
Mhm.
detergents and disinfectants are two different things. You have to remove soiled material from a cage. You have to remove surface soil, surface dirt, any kind of feces, any kind of anything like that from an enclosure, clean it, and then you disinfect. And it's like expecting these things to kind of do a double duty and not denature that disinfectant. Like that's just scary. Like that's a lax thing. And the other thing is like thumb in the water bowl syndrome. You have someone going through and watering snakes, and they're picking up bowls and putting them into enclosures, and they're hooking their thumb over it, and they're putting it in the water bowl, and then it goes into the next snake's water bowl and the next snake's water bowl. Like,
Mhm.
don't stick your thumb in the water bowl.
Mhm.
Those are just little things that you learn,
Yeah.
and
My biggest
bad
thing is
habits.
gloves. Like, yeah, in theory, but
Yes.
then if they don't change the gloves between
Right.
each, then there's no point in having gloves. It's just like,
Exactly. And so, but yeah, kind of, so back to the biosecurity question, like you just, be smart, make sure your sink is clean, make sure your tools are clean. Um, just don't be sloppy. Um, and people get complacent. And I think that's probably kind of the biggest threat to biosecurity, rather than following, this rigid protocol and using, this kind of disinfectant. Like I'll rotate through different kinds of disinfectants. I don't know that that necessarily makes a difference, but it makes me feel better about it.
yeah.
But just I do use disposable water cups that can be recycled, because it's cleaner, and then it's also sanity saver, because I hate scrubbing water bowls.
Hmm.
And so even my adults, they get like a big livestock pan, and those can be scrubbed, but then they get like a disposable liner in that. So yeah, it's
Which disinfectants do you typically use?
Oh, I use F10. I will use, I like the Simple Green, I think D. It's their antibacterial, antivirucidal. I like that one. I like Rescue.
Hmm.
I will rotate bleach in. I like Trifectant or Vircon. Like those are probably my kind of my mainstays. And then chlorhexidine has its
Yeah.
place too. So
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
I like the rescue and chlorhexidine.
Mhm.
Rescue I've used quite a bit in just institutions and
Yeah.
buildings,
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
like that. So I mean, that's what we use as sanitizing our animal enclosures. So yeah.
Sure.
I'm trying to think what else with biosecurity too is gonna ask. Shoot, I had a with are there any other things you test for in these guys besides like the Nido? Like, are there other kind of bugs that are in these guys or anything like that?
I haven't had to since not bringing in wild caught stuff really.
Okay.
Early on with wild caught, they had everything under the sun, and that was just always like really kind of crazy. But this is kind of one of the benefits of having a closed collection, and then just being smart about things. Those are Nido's the big one that I test for, just because it is so prevalent and it's so out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the number one. And then like inclusion body disease, I know if
I've heard of yeah.
I don't really see like a need for that because I'm really only working with one species of snake at this time. And
Yep.
there's no, so there's not any kind of cross contamination coming in from that. But yeah, it's more dependent. Like, will I test for other things if I see weird stuff popping up?
Mhm.
Sure. I don't see weird stuff popping up.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Inclusion body. I've seen some of that in vet school. I've seen some
Mhm.
cases of that or like teaching cases. Mostly, at least when I've seen it, it's in your like boas though.
Right.
I think that's the only species I've personally seen it in and tissue wise, like looking at it under a
Mhm.
microscope and seeing in clinical science. But yeah, so and with the night I might have missed it, but how often are you testing?
Periodically throughout the year.
Okay.
If it's an animal in quarantine, like we'll do it when they first arrive, and
Mhm.
then and then every 90 days kind of
Mhm.
thing. But and it's NIDO is one of those tough ones, right? Because there are
Yeah.
a lot of false negatives
Yes.
out there, and that's
Yep.
scary.
Yep.
So yeah, just test, and test periodically, and test if you see something weird, and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. With these guys, maybe not so much in like your collection, but as you've seen with other keepers, besides respiratory stuff, are there other things that you see health wise in these guys? I'm always just curious, just from the vet kind of background, different species if they when they get certain things. But yeah.
Probably the two biggest things, obesity, because blood
Mm,
pythons love to eat and they have really slow metabolisms. And so
mm,
they're incredibly fuel efficient, which is wonderful,
mm,
but it's easy to make them fat. And so that tends to be an issue. And then constipation, I guess, which I think mostly comes from snakes being insufficiently hydrated. Blood pythons want fresh water frequently. I don't think that changing waters every other day is inappropriate for this species. Like they really want fresh water. Um, and so I think when you have a blood python that is overfed, that is in too small of an enclosure, and is not getting out to move around, and then is dehydrated on top of it, that is when you run into a snake that is going to have more problems, maybe passing a big urate or a big fecalith, and then everything else is kind of backed up after that.
mhm,
Snakes that are hydrated don't tend to have that problem. Now, that said, there are periods of a blood python's life where they're doing a lot of fast growing and they're just using every bit of their food up, and they are not defecating as frequently. And you'll just see that. And sometimes it'll be like 6 to 8 months, or even a year or more. But that's where, as a keeper, you have to learn like what is healthy for this snake and what is a snake that's really backed up with like these crazy dried urates that are difficult for them to pass because they're dehydrated. And you hear so frequently that bloods don't defecate often, and so it's easy for a keeper to get lulled into a false sense of security because they don't know
mhm,
what a dehydrated snake looks like yet. And if they're only changing waters once a week, that snake's probably not drinking as frequently as
mm.
you would hope. So
I see. What signs of dehydration do you typically what like tips for somebody to
I
know?
think dimpled scales show up in bloods, and people tend to think, oh, it's not humid enough. No, change your snake's water more frequently,
Mm,
and that's a
okay.
big one. Make sure that
Okay.
they're drinking regularly.
And
So
there's another thing, making sure they poop in between meals? Is
No.
that no? Okay, so
No,
just
just
okay.
because they, again, those slow metabolisms, and
Yeah,
they will go pretty infrequently. I
yeah.
think just making sure you're not overfeeding. You don't want an obese snake. They should have a defined dorsal ridge. It shouldn't look like a knife edge,
Mhm.
but they shouldn't look like an overinflated inner tube either.
Yeah, I've seen
So,
some real like whoa,
oh,
like they're
like
just like
what?
so
I have no neck. Yes.
yeah, they're
Yeah, blood
just
python should
awesome
have a
as
neck and a
guys.
tail. Yes.
So if for somebody who had a blood python like past kind of that growth phase, how often do you
Mhm.
recommend feeding them and what they should feed them? This is just for like, pet just a pet keeper looking into their
Sure.
yeah.
So, I mean, pet keeper, first year of the snake's life, feed them once a week. You get into 2 years, feed them every couple of weeks. 3 years, learn how to judge body condition and adjust accordingly. I know because there are a lot of ways that you can feed these snakes and not have an obese snake, and there are a lot of ways that you can feed these snakes and turn them into a train wreck. And so, I think you have to look at what's feasible for you as a keeper. Are you comfortable feeding bigger meals less frequently? Or are you the type of keeper that wants to feed, like, do you love that interaction? Do you want to be in there feeding your snake? Feed them little meals once every week or two. And that's a really personal thing. And um, there's a lot of keepers get shamed online for having overfed snakes, but it is also incorrect to underfeed snakes chronically too.
Mhm.
And it's like no more morally superior to have this, little string bean of a snake, and to say, oh, I only feed it, 3 times a year. Um, if the snake's body condition doesn't support or doesn't
Yeah.
warrant only being fed 3 times a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard some of that like on the ball python side.
Hmm.
You know like who these breeders are and all of that and like I don't think they realize like chronically what that does to like the stomach of the animal because I've seen what that happen is like they'll kind of stunt them or may not feed them as much, but then they go to a new person's home where they're feeding them like every week, and the stomach
Right.
is probably atrophied to the point where actually the snake will like die, because they're
Hmm.
feeding it what should be fed, but it's not because it went through that stunting growth phase. So the stomach
Hmm.
can't end up rolling or bloating, or maybe I don't know the health why it would happen. My thought is that some maybe just too big or torged or something like that, just due to the atrophy of the stomach from not being fed. I don't know.
Well, and I think we have to look at one of the things that I see is, I got this snake and it's really skinny, and how frequently can I feed it to get it up to size? And it's like, whoa, pump the brakes. If you start slamming a snake with food that has not been accustomed to eating, their system is not ready to take in those nutrients, and you're gonna create havoc in that animal. And so you have to go slow and just gradually increase. It's like anything with reptile, like anything with any animal. If you're creating sudden, drastic change, there's going to be a chain reaction in the opposite direction that is probably not going to be positive for you or for
Mm-hmm.
the animal.
Mm-hmm.
Gradual, slow, kind of back what we were talking about. Be patient. Don't feel like you need to jump right in and play catch up. Go
Yeah.
gradually and make sure that this animal is adjusting to whatever that new feeding schedule is, adjusting the prey size, adjusting the prey frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to take those things into consideration.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
100%
yeah.
for sure. Before I kind of keep going, I'll make sure if a lot of questions tonight. I love seeing the interaction and all
Yeah,
the questions. I
that's
want to
really
make
cool.
sure. I think Jake. I think I'm missing one. Oldest split python. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's an interesting topic too.
Oh, like 18.
Wow,
Yep.
it's pretty old.
Yeah, yeah, it
Old.
is.
Yeah.
Pretty
Have
old.
you? What's the oldest that you've heard of? I
I
think.
think like in bloods, like 25, 26-ish.
Uh,
Yep. That at least came from a source that I knew was reputable. I will say that.
yeah.
You hear 30-year-old snakes, 40-year-old snakes. I mean, awesome. From whom? That's not to say they're not out there, but I can say 25 from a verified source that I would trust.
Okay,
So
that's pretty long. Pretty
it
long.
is. It's
But they're
awesome.
reptiles. I've heard of leopard
Yeah.
geckos. I've heard upper teens, 19.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty similar age guys. Before I kind of switch topics into more of like the business side of things, I think because I
Okay.
wanted to touch on like the care. I think we did that. I guess the only thing maybe like enclosure size. Like, what are your thoughts on like that? I'm assuming that you keep yours with obviously like openings in them so they can see the light.
Oh
Because
yeah,
that's
yeah,
so
yeah,
like
yeah.
important. But maybe touch on that on the pet side versus breeding size of things.
So there are a lot of ways to keep blood pythons successfully. And when they're little bitty babies, they get overwhelmed by too much space very easily. And so I think once a hatchling is established and they are multiple meals in, we have to think about, okay, if this snake is going to go to a pet home, how can we help them move up to a larger enclosure and thrive in that and become a consistent feeder in that, knowing that most pet keepers are going to want to set up a really nice display cage and enjoy their blood python sitting in substrate all day long because you never see them. And so I think we have an obligation to bump them up to cage sizes and make sure that we are helping snakes adapt to bigger enclosures. With the size of blood python lungs, I think they need a lot of room to stretch out and just be comfortable. And so, like my big adults live in the 9706 racks from ARS, which is essentially a 4x2 cage, kind of that same footprint. I think that there are blood pythons, bigger ones, that is absolutely appropriate for them to go into a 6 foot or even larger enclosure. And so, give these snakes, do not cram them into something where they have to sit doubled up all the time.
Yeah.
I don't think it's healthy for them long term. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Super helpful.
Yeah.
And then if you guys have any other questions on care, I think you can put that in. We'll bring it up. As far as like the business, when did you kind of start that with the bloodpythons.com? Like what made you kind of, maybe it's your now husband that kind of, I don't know if it was before that or after?
No. So I've had the bloodpythons.com website since 2002.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's been mine like the whole time. And he had the blood cell, and so that's why bloodpythons.com is now the website for the blood cell. But yeah, so yeah, it's been a while. Yep. But yes, I've had that the whole time. Definitely earlier on, it was more informational than for selling snakes, just because I was at Nerd and heavily involved in the operations there. But then really, I think 2006, 2007 became just more of my own entity and focus. So yeah, it's been a minute.
And what kind of things have you kind of learned along the way with the, doing this and business side of things, and anything in particular?
Yeah. I think about like, when I send out a snake, I think about what would I want to receive. And so I send out, you get like a welcome kit with one of my snakes, and it's the feeding records, kind of a how to get started with this animal. You have a laminated pedigree that shows, multiple generations behind it. And then, I do like a thank you card, and I do stickers too, but I know we were kind of riffing on that a little bit earlier, but yeah, just like little odds and ends to really let a keeper know, like, this is everything you need to know about this snake to go and be successful with it, and for it to have a good experience with you. And I think that those personal touches are important, because they also demonstrate that your animal. Like, here's its history, here are its parents, here are its grandparents, here are its great grandparents, and in some cases, can trace those back to wild caught stock. Being able to just demonstrate, like, look at everything that's gone into this animal being what it is. And then don't cut corners. Don't cut corners with shipping. Don't cut corners with feeding. Don't cut corners, especially with shipping, because what we do there, that impacts the entire hobby. Be smart about your heat pack usage. Know when to use one. Know what kind of package filler you need to use, so that if a snake pees a ton during shipping, you're not gonna be sitting in this soggy wet paper, or it's not gonna pee all over a heat pack and then render that heat pack useless. I mean, just little things like that separate the good from the great, I think, and make a big difference. So, and be willing to share information with other keepers, like what's the best practice, that kind of thing.
Super helpful. Yeah, it's little details that I think set you apart, and it's hard when you're new. You know, I made
Yeah.
mistakes that I've learned from, and as long as you can just learn from it, and
Yeah.
every detail kind of matters, people take appreciation of that. Um,
Totally.
so yeah, just something to keep. It's hard starting out. All the things you can just the shipping. I feel like it's a little more streamlined now. Like they're not
Oh,
they're
so much
if
better.
it's at this, it's here, but I still run
Hmm.
into issues with like me being now warm, shipping to some place
Hmm.
that's really cold and trying to like deal with that
Yeah.
is also difficult. And here's another one from Agent HH Pythons. Have been very active tonight. I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. What is the blood python market looking
It's a good
like in
question.
your opinion? That is a great question. I don't I don't know that I pay a ton of attention to the blood python market.
Hmm.
Um, I morphs aren't my thing, and it seems like that's really what's out there. I find that keepers who want to get a nice snake are going to come buy a nice snake regardless.
Hmm.
I think the reptile market as a whole, not necessarily blood python specific, but I think the market overall right now is soft, just with the economy being what it is. We're coming into the holidays. Um, life has been expensive the last few years, and I think people are feeling the pinch of that. And
Hmm.
snakes are a luxury, pets are a luxury. The fact that we
Hmm.
get to do this at all is a luxury,
Hmm.
even as it is a necessity. Um, but I think that if you are prepared to keep every snake that you hatch, and that's your end goal, and then if you get to sell them, that's just gravy. Then that's a good outlook, and that's a good way to do it. It's a big reason why I do not breed blood pythons as my source of income. They are a hobby for me. I have a full-time job. I work 50 hours a week. And then snakes are for enjoyment. And
Yeah.
when I get to share that with other people, it's really cool. So
Yeah.
I don't stress about what the market is doing. So
Yeah. Yeah. I agree all with that. All sense of things. I think it is a little bit just holidays coming into it's just it's just been
yeah.
rough couple years with everything
Yeah.
so expensive, and so I think people need to take that into account too when they're breeding. I think there's like kind of two different more minds. I mean, the guys that are doing it full time, they have to have a different sort of mindset, I think, to it
Hmm.
in order to keep the lights on, so to speak. But again, it
Yep.
kind of goes back to if you're doing this on the side or something, just to be really mindful of, like if you still have babies from a pairing from like the year before, maybe don't just
Yeah.
repeat the pairing to repeat it. Just like kind of
Right.
think that. Oh, this is a nice comment too. I have another question coming up. This is a nice comment from Jessica.
Yeah, she just got snakes for me last week, and
Oh,
got a
very
really
cool.
nice group. So Jessica, thank you for yeah, it's a really beautiful. She has a great eye. Picked up some really pretty snakes, and I'm just glad that they're in wonderful hands.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
like I
So,
said, I literally have the best customers. I really do. Like,
yeah,
and I'll brag on them.
yeah,
So,
it's
what
amazing.
do I use to track pedigrees? Husbandry Pro does cover that, but I am old school with this, Jessica. I have a Excel spreadsheet that dates back to 2002.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's
Keep
super
going.
old. And then I have it all written down too. Like I'm really redundant with data. So I have it all in a notebook, I have it all in an Excel spreadsheet, and I have it in Husbandry Pro. So
Redundance key because you never know. I ran into that with like my PhD. I spilled water on like one of my computers and
oh
had like a oh
no.
crap moment.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I have a hunch you probably didn't just say oh crap.
yeah, it was in the middle.
We'll keep it clean on the air, but man, I cannot imagine the
Yeah.
panic that must have oh
Yeah. I was doing
wow.
experiments in the middle of my dissertation. I mean, thankfully I had stuff backed up where it was fine, like it's on flash drive, but I did have to like I had it in notebooks. I just had to kind of
Oh
do it
my God.
online.
And then you're in panic mode and you're like, you have
Oh,
these little nuanced things that you said that sounded so good the first time you wrote them, and
yeah.
then you can never remember them when it's the 37th time and you're on that
Yep,
15th cup of coffee, and no, never been there.
yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So
So again, have it in multiple places.
redundancy of, yeah, Department of Redundancy department is your
Yeah,
friend. Back your stuff up
100%.
and then back up your backups.
Yeah, it was a hard lesson. I don't even know what. Yeah, I just had water and just kind of was clumsy and
Oh,
just kind of did it when I was writing on stuff and Yep, had to get a new computer and all of that.
I
So,
bet.
so
Wow.
yeah,
Bummer.
It was. I mean, I got through it. It was fine in the end, but hard lesson to learn in the moment.
Yeah.
Look up any other questions before we kind of keep going. I like to keep these to
Yeah.
like hour and a half, like max, and
Sure.
we're kind of coming
Okay.
up to that.
Okay.
A little over about like hour 15. Is there any other like topics you kind of want to get into? Okay,
I do. I want to
all
talk
right.
about Nick Botini for a minute.
Okay.
Because Nick owned Cold Blooded Earth and was just a huge impact and influence on
Mm.
the short tail python community.
Mm.
And Nick ended his own life in a mental health crisis
Mm.
earlier this year. And we mental health is tough. It's fragile. It's delicate. It's difficult. And I think that kind of back to that comparative predatory social media that we were talking about earlier, I think it's getting harder and harder, even though we are more connected than we've ever been. It's harder and harder for people to ask for help. And we all as keepers have to be, all as humans, need to be kinder. We need to be more welcoming. We need to be more gracious. If you go to my website, there's a page. It's hashtag CBE forever, and there are just some mental health resources on that
Oh,
page.
perfect. Let me share that.
And yeah, and if you're just ever in a if you're ever in a rough spot and you feel like you cannot reach out for help, hit me up. Like, reach out to me. I will talk to you. I will listen. Yeah. And if you scroll down, there are a lot of resources at the bottom of that page. But that was Nick, and Nick was one of my best friends. He was like my younger brother in this hobby, and I just never want to see anybody else go through that. And so if you're, just know, like, you're not a burden. Your being here impacts people, and your not being here would really hurt people, even if you can't see it. And just please reach out. Please reach out for help. And yeah, I think that's important to just reiterate. So, and CBE forever.
Yep. I can see that. Yeah, I'm sharing it here. People
Thank
can
you. Yeah,
see that. I'll keep that on the screen for a little bit.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think the mental health thing is something to bring to light a lot
Totally.
more. No, I've dealt with it here and there quite a bit in the last, I would say, a few months, with moving and not knowing
Sure.
anybody here. And it was super hard. It was so
Hard.
lonely.
Yeah.
I would go to work, but I
Yeah.
didn't really have much friends up until last month or 6 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And so I think just not being afraid to just talk about it, because I'm one, and as many of us are, hide things and don't want to just be that burden or tell people.
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes back to just, surrounding yourself with the right people who are going to go to bat for you, people who are like family. I've gained a lot of those in the reptiles, and I've reached out to them when I kind of felt like that way, and they really cared, called me and everything like that. So I can't thank those guys enough. But
Absolutely. I mean, well, I'll put it out there. I deal with chronic depression and generalized anxiety disorder, and I'm on meds for it, and it has totally made a huge difference for me. Like, it really helped me to get to a point where I could start to process things and find better coping mechanisms. And here you go. You think it's not easy to reach out. I mean, have you ever just tried not being depressed? Boy, how many of us have heard that before? And it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's helpful. It is hard. It is absolutely hard, but it's doable, and I do it every day. And I will sit and talk to you and help you find resources so that you can do it every day too, because I want you to be around here to do it every day versus the alternative. And it's okay to need help. Like, life is hard.
Yeah.
And you are never stronger than when you can reach out and say, I need help. I mean, people that are just, white knuckling it and raw dogging it through life, I mean, cool, but how are things at home? Like, are you really doing okay? Because man, unclench your jaws and relax your shoulders. What does that feel like? Oh, wow, forgot you were carrying that tension. It is okay to not be okay.
To
but
show where it's okay to not be okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay
Yeah.
to talk about not being okay. And yeah, so I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah. I was gonna shoot. I forgot what I was gonna say. I had a train of thought, and I hate it when that
No,
happens.
it's fine.
But um,
Good.
yeah, I think just surrounding yourself with friends and not being afraid to kind of course reach out to them
Yeah.
um when you need to. Yeah, then I think that's what I was kind of going. I still see it too. It's just that kind of stigma um
Oh,
of
so
mental
much.
health, or why are you sad? Like go do this and it'll all go away. And it's just like, if it's hard to just explain to people, but they don't really
Hmm.
sometimes you don't really know. And it drives me kind of nuts why I don't know it's hard to explain, and
Mm.
it's hard for people to hear that, I think, sometimes, but sometimes you just don't know what it is. And then you kind of, at least for me, I kind of go in circles of, I
Sure.
should know this because, analytically, there's got to be a reason to everything, right?
Well,
Fact or, so I kind of just get in that kind of mindset that it's hard sometimes, but
and then it's easy to get down on yourself because you're like, I'm smart. I should be able to figure this out. But this is also, like earlier, I was saying, we have to journal. We have to reflect.
mm-hmm.
Because it will show us how far we've come.
Yep.
But sometimes we'll have like those light bulb moments of, oh, hey, look, this is why I'm feeling this way. And I think the other thing is too, is that we have to be willing to sit with discomfort. Life is not all easy, pretty pythons and likes on Facebook. Like life is tough. We're going to get challenged. It is unrealistic to think that we're going to go through life without conflict or being happy all the time. Like happiness is a byproduct of
Mm-hmm.
purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So
Purpose.
yeah, happiness is a byproduct of purpose.
Yeah.
And achieving purpose, we're going to navigate hardships. We're going to navigate troubles. That's how we get stronger. That's how we grow. But until we flip that switch and get into that growth mindset and say, yeah, I'm going to use, I coach a lot. I'm a Clifton Strength certified coach. That's one of my
Oh,
tools that I
we
bring
did
with me
that.
to work.
We did that in residency.
All right.
Clifton
So
Strengths. We've
if you
done
want to
that.
if you want to dig into that more, let me know. And oh my gosh, I would love to unpack that with you. It's mind blowing. I've done it with so many teams now, but
Should do it with the team. Yeah.
seriously, let me know when, and I will be more than happy to set up some coaching time. But being uncomfortable, understanding these things that make us feel the way we do, it's like emotional burpees. Like you're doing burpees in the gym, you're getting stronger. Burpees suck. I don't know anybody that says I love burpees. And if you do, you're lying. You probably also love kale, right? Like the only thing that I know that loves kale are my emus, and emus go to town on kale. I think everybody else is lying about kale. Just like you're lying about burpees. Burpees suck, but we feel so much better when we've done them, and they've made us stronger when we've done them. Dealing with tough emotional stuff is like burpees, and it sucks while we're in the middle of it, but it's going to make us stronger on the other side if we're just willing to lean in and do it.
Yeah. Yep.
So
I actually I was on TikTok scrolling, and I saw something very similar with the challenges only making you better, essentially. Yeah, because I feel like this past year, just with school and moving, it's been nothing but kind of challenges, and I'm like, when is this gonna? I mean, that's life, right?
Yeah,
but
totally.
I feel like it was so like this whole year,
just the onslaught of it. Yes. Yeah. Well, and then you put 2025 on top of it, which like this year has just been bonkers on like globally. And that's why it's like we have to take that time and say, I am going to make time for rest. I am going to make time to recuperate and to regenerate and to kind of recharge, because we can't just burn ourselves out constantly. Like I'm looking at what HH Pythons is saying in the chat here, and like having 100+ animals to care for, that wears on you. You have to make time. Like keeping on top of it can absolutely get to you. Absolutely. There are some things that you can do to like set up your tubs ahead of time, so you can just go through and swap them out and then take the dirty tubs out and power wash them and disinfect them and have like batch workflows, so that you can step away and take that time with your friends, because you need that. You need to be able to go and recharge and step away from it. Otherwise you will burn out, you will get overwhelmed, and then it just turns into a spiral, and it can get really, really ugly really quick. And so, that's why, again, we have to make time for those things, even when we feel like we don't have time. And it's also, it is okay to look at a collection of snakes and say, I don't want to keep this many of them. I want to keep fewer of them in bigger enclosures, or I want to keep maybe half as many as I'm keeping now. Like this glorification of just having rows and rows and rows and stacks and stacks and stacks of racks and cages. Like, why? Why? Where's the enjoyment? If it stops being enjoyable, we really have to take a step back and reassess and just say, what are we doing here? And it's okay to change it up and to do things differently.
I think it's the other thing too, that it is okay, because sometimes you see people, you know, getting out, and then there's like a kind of a negative like stigma across from and that. And I think, you know, I mean, honestly, at some percent, like, oh, how can somebody like get out? It's so like just doing it. It's so easy to get burnt out, and you know, not really thinking negatively or something of those people that are getting out. I mean, sure, we want to keep them. Maybe they can reduce it or something, but you know, we don't know why somebody's getting out or something like that.
You never know what someone's up against. You don't know what struggles somebody has at work. You don't know what struggles they have at home. You have no idea. All we see is the highlight reels that they put on the internet, and that's what they choose to share with us. It's very curated. And sitting here and piling judgment on top of them, especially when so many people that are doing that are so far from having their stuff together. Like, whoa, you know, pump the brakes. Let's be better humans. And if someone's getting out, like reach out and just say, hey, are you doing okay with this? Because so many of us, like, we're really tied up in these animals. There's a reflection of ourselves. There's a reflection of our identity. There's that connection, that love. And to have to make that decision to downsize or to get out, like, that's painful.
Yeah.
So instead of judging someone for getting out, like, reach out to them and, hey, you want to talk about it? Or, hey, are you doing okay? Or can I get you a cup of coffee? Or do you need an ear? Like, that's what we need to do. So.
100%. No, totally agree. Yeah. And this kind of just, you know, seeing how much time and takes, and after doing a full-time job, you know, I realized that the past few months I've just been like, whoa, it's so much more juggling than before. So I'm having to kind of reevaluate things. In the last couple weeks, I've kind of been one to probably downsize a little bit too, just to make it
nothing wrong with that.
A little easier. So yeah.
It's okay to downsize. It is okay to not keep a million snakes. It is okay to not breed. Like, I might not even breed anything this year. I just, you know, had a big season. I hatched a bunch of snakes this year. Might not even worry about breeding stuff, because it's okay to not breed animals. Like, it's okay to just enjoy them for what they are, and to rekindle that excitement for just walking in your snake room, or walking into that area in your home where you have your enclosures, and just going, cool, the snake just shed, and stretching out that big shed and being like, all right, I know this is way bigger than my snake is, but look at this perfect shed, and the eye caps are there, and the tail tip is there, and just like recaps, and hopefully there's not like a giant turd in the middle of the but like, enjoy those moments too, because those moments are every bit as valid as hatching a clutch of eggs and posting pictures on social media. So
100%. Yeah, this has been great. Yeah, we're coming up to, let me see if there's any other
questions. I know this flew by. So.
Yeah, it usually does. Like the first half, it kind of like getting into it, and the second half is like, whoop, we get comfortable, and then we start kind of weaves. But it's been a fantastic show.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, love to have you on again in the future. Just kind of
absolutely
next year or something. Sometime it'd be a lot of fun, because there's a lot more I feel like we can talk about. And,
oh gosh, absolutely.
Go into. I love talking about like the big picture kind of analyzing. I love like the analyzing conversations.
Gosh. Well, we'll have to do one on like pedigrees, and I'll just show you where, like, here's the end result of this snake, and then here are the parents back years and years and years, and then you just start to see these little traits that stack up, and you're like, oh, that's where that came from. And it's when you can look at it as a map, because you're not just breeding to the parents behind, you know, just to those adults. Like, it's the animals behind them, and the animals behind them, and the animals behind them. And once you see that big picture, it's like, it's really cool.
Yeah, so that'd be super cool. Yeah, we could go into that too.
We'll do that.
Future show too. I think that'd be super helpful in the more genetics part. Yeah, that'd be great. I think I put like your Instagram in the in the description. I did show like the website too. Is there any other way? How can people like reach out to you or anything like that?
Instagram is great. Our Facebook page is great. Website is great. Like any of those
Okay.
are fine. Like I said, I'm not on Morph Market just because I do require that application process. But just hit me up on socials. And if I don't see you immediately, I'll get back to you at some point. I
Yeah.
do have notification fatigue, so I will take breaks from social media from time to time. But
Yeah.
just
I've had to.
reach out, and
Perfect.
or if you really want to, dun dun dun, I'll call you and we'll have a conversation.
Oh,
I
riveting.
know. Anxiety. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Anxiety and terror and all of the like let's just talk. Let's have a conversation. Let's connect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Perfect. That'd be awesome.
cool.
I hopefully people seeing just this, can be
Yeah,
like, oh, I could talk to her on the phone, and it's super, super chill, even keeled. So
absolutely. I will put you on with my geese and my emus and let you talk to them. And after that, I'm really harmless, I promise. So
perfect. We got a few, just a few comments. Thank you, Amanda.
yeah,
Yeah, super great episode, Jake the Snake. Yeah, thanks
thanks.
for tapping in, and HH, thank you so much for all your questions, and
Yeah,
guys keeping the chat popping. Hopefully it was pretty learned a lot, and take some tidbits into our own collection. So yeah,
absolutely.
had a great time tonight. Thank you for your time. Hope you have a
Yeah,
great
likewise.
start to your week, and you're good to log off. Yeah, I'll take
Awesome.
you off
Thank
the
you so
screen.
much. All
All
righty.
right.
Thanks
Bye,
all.
Kara. Have a good night. All right, guys. Thanks for tapping in. Great episode. Would love to have her on again. Thanks for all your guys' support. If you are new, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you're looking for a Patreon, you can join the Trap Talk Patreon. I believe the link is down below. If you have questions, just reach out. I'm going to play some commercials now for you. But again, if you have questions, just don't afraid to reach out to me on Instagram. And again, I hope you guys have a great start to your week.
One of the biggest growths we have in the reptile industry today are the rare species of reptiles that aren't worked with. That's right. That's why I went ahead and partnered up again with Brian Susan over at SUNDOWN Reptiles. Brian works with species such as kahua geckos, gargoyle geckos, all species of tree monitors. He works with abronia and many other cool species geckos that you can check out all on his website. Head over to sundownreptiles.com, see what he has available. Brian's one of the best doing it in the reptile industry today. He's been on the show multiple times, so make sure you check out all of Brian Susan's episodes on Trap Talk Reptile Network. But more importantly, for the highest quality of captive bred reptiles, make sure you head over to sundownreptiles.com and make sure you give him a follow on Instagram. Thank you again, Brian Susan over at SUNDOWN Reptiles. One of the things I love about being a part of the reptile industry is all the learning, okay? Learning can be fun, and I can prove that to you. Thank you so much to today's sponsor, it's Gary Scavino over at gs.reptiles. I highly recommend you head over to his YouTube channel, follow all this man's content when it comes to learning about rare species of snakes you could be keeping in the hobby, and also just finding out how easy a lot of these rare species of snakes are to keep in general. So thank you so much, Gary Scavino of GS Reptiles. Again, head over to his YouTube channel. Also head over to his Instagram to be on top of all of his current work and be ready for a big year over at GS Reptiles. Thank you so much, Gary, for your ongoing support. I really appreciate it. Cheers.